In our previous video, we looked at the PS1 Armored Core games, and compared to the other titles on the PS1, I'd say it held up pretty well. Now it's time to upgrade from the PS1 to the PS2 and see where FromSoft took the Armored Core series, starting with Armored Core 2. Armored Core 2, just like Armored Core 1, was a launch title for its respective console, and just from looking at the intro cutscene we can see a visual increase. From the intro, it's also pretty easy to tell we're no longer on Earth. To my knowledge, this is the only game in the series to take place outside of planet Earth, and we instead are on the planet Mars. We're also showing off some of the new features this game has to offer, like the anti-missile systems, the energy shield, and the new overboosting feature. And we'll talk about every new addition in depth a bit later. But for now, let's just start the game. Unlike the two previous titles, we're not able to load our save from the previous games to re-obtain any of the parts we had. Looking into this, it might have actually been possible since the PS2 can read PS1 memory cards, but I'm glad they force you to start fresh.
Earth Year 223. In the wake of the final war known as the Great Destruction, mankind was forced underground. But with the discovery of the pre-war Mars Immigration Project, the human race would again prosper and flourish. The age of conflict in the subterranean world was finally over, and the newly established government made restoration of the devastated environment its priority. Emigration to Mars was encouraged, but this influx of settlers posed a threat to law and order on the Red Planet. Corporations that were all-powerful during the subterranean era lost their foothold when the government was created. But with a new planet, ripe for exploration, they discovered opportunities to regain their strength.
We name our character and we're given a training test to once again prove ourselves to be classified as a Raven. We're overseen by what I can only think would be our teacher, Strung, and he has some motivational words to share.
If you fail, you die.
We blow up a few generic MTs and we're faced off with an upgraded MT that I'm pretty sure we will never see again. This thing has a laser blade you really want to watch out for.
Not bad. Your piloting abilities are impressive. Congratulations. From now on, you're a Raven.
So just like Armored Core 1, we can pile up a bunch of debt in order to get the Human Plus ability. Once again, it takes a good 30-40 minutes, and it gives all the same abilities that Armored Core 1 gave us, from firing back weapons to having more energy. There's also another feature that increases our cooling so we don't overheat. So let's talk about overheating. Overheating is a new feature where if you or your opponent start taking damage too rapidly, the health of the AC will start taking constant damage. You can also overheat from standing in lava or fire. Your cooling performance is dictated by a new part called the radiator, and I've never had a problem with overheating in this game, but in later games overheating is more prevalent. Now would be a good time to talk about all the new additions in the game. Instead of equipping an infinite ammo laser blade, you now have an option to use an energy shield. This blocks a percentage of damage you take, but also drains your energy over time. In my opinion, it's not really a good option. We also have extensions that go on your mech's shoulders that are usually relation missiles that fire simultaneously with your missile systems, or anti-missile systems that might save your ass from an enemy missile. We also have access to overboosting function that will propel you forward at a rapid pace at the cost of energy. Every core part has this new feature. There's also inside parts that consist of stationary missile decoys, hover bomb dispensers, and lock-on jamming devices. But I've never found these inside parts useful because you have to select them in your weapon select every time you want to use them. We also get a new type of legs called hover legs. They let you float on water, but I only see 2 missions where they could be useful. One mission has you defending a submarine, and the other has you defusing bombs planted on a mining rig. Maybe for new players this would help out, but they do slow down your mobility quite a bit, kinda like quad legs. I mean, the second you touch the water, it's pretty much game over, so they're kinda useful. But whenever you're floating on the water, it registers you as almost leaving the area, so you get this really loud sounded warning. How they added in all the other new functions lies within the new PS2 controller. We now have analog sticks, but if you think you're going to use them for moving your mech around and the camera, you're sadly mistaken. But we can click the analog sticks down and register a button press. This is how you activate and deactivate your overboost and extensions. I think a big part of this game's difficulty stems from the controls. Other PS2 launch titles shared the same deficit of not using the analog stick, and I think it's a big reason why this game is viewed as difficult. Armored Core 2 has 202 parts compared to Master of Arena's 187, but keep in mind all the parts we have in the game are stretched thin with radiators, extensions, and inside parts, so it actually feels like a step down in parts, and I think this is the biggest gripe I have with this game. I want to talk about the lack of variety and poor balancing. At the beginning of the game, you can use just about anything you want, but as you progress, your options become limited. In missions, the machine gun reigns supreme, for having a huge ammo pool and decent damage. That is, if you're not using Human Plus or the Kurosawa that's hidden halfway through the game. I got some good use out of the pulse gun, simply because you don't have to pay for ammo, but later on I ended up not using it. Meanwhile, in the later arena fights, you end up using missiles when they're not being countered by anti-missile systems, and the machine gun just doesn't put out the needed damage, so you want to turn towards the grenade launcher or its energy equivalents. Using missiles in missions is almost never suggested, as you'll take a beating in the ammo cost. Of course, you could just use quad legs or tank legs to fire the good back weapons, but it negatively affects your speed, so I'd rather use Human Plus. And now it's time to talk about head functions and optional parts. These features existed in the previous games, but I've found them more detrimental in the PS2 games. Head functions are huge, as they can provide a built-in radar, a biosensor that allows you to lock on to organic life forms, lock-on disruption resistance, a map function that varies in quality, and most embarrassingly of them all, the new hacking function that's only used to acquire one hidden part. Funny enough, every head has some level in hacking quality, but only one head is good enough to open the door that hides the hidden part. And aside from that, there's only one head that has all the functions to get you through the game. Just a single one. There's actually two, but the second one doesn't have a detailed map type, so there's one mission in particular where you gotta find all this cargo that's spread out in a snowy mountaintop, and if you don't use the first head, you're gonna be stuck on that mission for 30 minutes. If you don't just give up and get the better head. Optional parts, not to be confused with inside parts, are these weightless parts that give your mech distinct bonuses. For example, there's one that increases turning speed, another that increases your generator capacity, and etc. and etc. Usually the more useful the part, the more slots it takes. Sadly, the amount of slots depends on the core, and there's only 6 cores in this game. These core slots I think are more important than the actual core stats themselves. All of the things I mentioned contribute to this game's so-called difficulty, and I'd highly suggest Human Plus simply for the fact that you get more weapon options, while still being able to use the faster and cooler looking legs. All the complaints I've had are overshadowed by the positives though. The sound effects will forever be engraved in my head, from the missile lock-on sound, the sound of weapons firing, and even the sound of your mech boosting and slamming into the ground. Everything just sounds so different from any other game, and you can hear the weight and the power. The soundtrack isn't something I'd listen to outside of the game, but it's rather good, especially when you realize it's a 22-year-old game. I'm playing this game on an emulator, but I do want to compliment the graphics and the 60 frames a second. It's a huge increase from the PS1. The gameplay also slowed down compared to the PS1 games, which is good because enemies tend to stay on screen, and the predictive aim of your weapons seems to work better now. Missions where you're inside feel more bearable, most likely due to the slower pace of the gameplay. And now with overboosting, the slowdown isn't a negative factor in any way. In theory, tank legs may be more viable than I first thought, from the increased mobility from overboosting. I want to give a huge compliment to AgeTech for doing their best with translations. You can tell they put a lot of love into the Arena Pilot descriptions, and I won't be spending any time making fun of the translations like I did in the PS1. This wasn't them just translating for FromSoft, they literally handcrafted all the descriptions for the pilots. One of the only Armored Core Insider interviews was from an AgeTech employee, from another YouTuber that made a review of this game. The video link will definitely be in the description. It sheds a lot of insight, and any insider information into these games is definitely welcome. Now that we've talked about mostly all the changes in the game, we can get into what the game has to offer. The arena's made a return, and I think it's been drastically balanced. No more joke fights in the top 10. Instead, you'll most likely be getting your shit pushed in. The top-ranked pilot has no role in the story, though he doesn't just vanish when you get the chance to fight him in the arena. When you start, there's 50 arena contenders, but something new is when you progress through the missions, new pilots will be added to the arena, and if you take out arena pilots in the campaign, they'll instead disappear from the arena until you beat the game. This adds a lot of immersion to the game. Remember in Project Phantasma when they kept throwing Stinger at me and I asked why they didn't just use some arena contestants? Yeah, that question's been answered in this game. The rank 1 pilot uses the Kurosawa, and the only hard counter I could find is also using the Kurosawa. It's a fast-paced fight that can only go one of two ways. You instantly get destroyed, or you instantly destroy him. One of these days I want to challenge myself to get to rank 1 before doing any missions to unlock new shop parts or getting the hidden Kurosawa, but for right now let's finish this review. For anyone playing these games for the first time, I'd suggest clearing out the arena as much as you can, and then doing missions until you unlock new parts, and then just try clearing out the arena some more. Now let's cover the story and missions. In mission briefings we now have some voice acting.
The goal is to undermine the public trust in Zeomatrix by destroying their ability to supply a necessary commodity, power. Destroy the facility and all Rectenna devices.
Now, some people might say this is the worst voice acting they've ever heard, but I actually think it's some of the best. I mean, shit, I can't roll a single R, and this guy rolls every R to perfection. I'm honestly kinda jealous. And it doesn't even stop there. Listen to this big boy personality.
Now, to counter this, we've devised a plan to regain control, but we're going to require the assistance of a Raven. We hereby request that you eliminate the special forces running rampant in the city.
Nah, I'm gonna require a like and subscribe on this video to hit with the YouTube algorithm. And if you don't, you're not a real Texan. And sadly, the other voice actors don't sound as ridiculous.
We request the elimination of an informer. The target is an employee of ours who has been selling highly classified information to other corporations.
Now, I might have been messing around, but it is actually pretty nice to have some voice actors for the briefings. It's genuinely a good addition. Just like every other Armored Core game, the missions start out easy before feeding you to the dogs. Energy weapons don't cost anything to fire, so try doing that as much as you can. There's 37 missions and they're all unique enough to not burn you out. Some of the missions are repeats from previous Armored Core games, but only repeat enough to show off the fact that you're on the next-gen console.
AC catastrophe verified. Commence attack. Keep in mind, your primary objective is to guard the train.
Now let's try to piece these 37 missions in with the story in a way that won't take an hour. When we make a new save, we're given a 30-second background story that Master of Arena couldn't afford to give us. We're on Mars. Did I mention there's water on Mars? Damn, Elon Musk is killing this shit. So corporations are so done with the New World Order of taxes and micromanaging that they founded Mars. And that is where our story starts. Because we're a Raven and not just a plebeian, we find out that we weren't the first civilization on Mars, but the previous civilization no longer exists. The beginning of the game has us taking up jobs from the 3 big corporations on Mars that are always at war with each other. There's Zeo Matrix, that's the biggest corporation on Mars. They're also the company responsible for terraforming Mars, making it inhabitable. We then have Emerald, that's the largest Earth company that's trying to catch up to Zeo Matrix now that they're on Mars. And the third and smallest company is Balena, that does its best to stay friends with the 2 larger companies. That way it doesn't get blown to ashes. We're also introduced pretty early on to LCC, that was created by the all-powerful Earth government to neuter the Mars corporations and stop the constant conflict. LCC is stuck on Earth, so they don't really have any true power. The corporations just tell LCC they'll do what they say, and in reality they continue doing whatever they want. Well, Daddy LCC is sick of this shit, and they finally nut up and tell everyone if they don't get along, there's gonna be some lethal spankings. And that goes for Ravens accepting unethical jobs from these companies too. But you know what? I got 10 mouths at home to feed, so fuck these guys. But trust me, that's not the last of LCC. They have near infinite funds, and their goal is to hire a bunch of Earth mercenaries and send them to Mars. These mercenaries are called Frighteners. In this mission, Emerald wants us to capture some cargo from Zeo Matrix that's being transported in the underground highway. Upon destroying the transport, we're introduced to the Disorder units. These are unmanned biological weapons that date back before Mars development, so in other words, alien technology from the past. We need a biosensor to lock onto these things, and this ancient civilization was actually capable of creating a head crab that shoots laser beams. Emerald hires us to defend one of their factories that has been targeted by LCC for housing a secret information terminal, and Balena has teamed up with LCC to raid the base. Our mission is to take out all enemy forces and protect the base.
Mission complete, but I've detected a unit of unknown origin, a Raven. I'll destroy it. Boyle, Ramila, the operation is finished. Roger.
You're lucky, Raven. Frighteners.
So that cutscene just about made me shit my pants as a kid. The mission is to destroy all opposition, and if you do stick around to kill enemies, you're gonna have barely survived by the time you make it to the Frighteners. They did a good job putting you in a weak position for this cutscene, and now we learn that there's Frighteners on Mars, so our job is gonna get exponentially more difficult. And they had this pretty cool cutscene at the start of the mission that I think is worth showing off.
I'm picking up a signal on the tracking device. They're somewhere here in this pit. It's your show from here on in, Raven. Good luck.
In this mission we get the Moonlight Blade, and obtaining it is strikingly similar to Armored Core 1. As we grow more powerful, our old mentor needs our help eradicating a Zeo Matrix research team.
It's been a while. Thanks for coming. I'm on the other side of the hill. Together we'll ambush the enemy platoon. Let's go.
Now, we've already bested our teacher Strung in the arena, and this is just a perfect example of FromSoft using arena contestants to richen the story of the game. The apprentice has surpassed the master, and now our old master needs our help. What an awesome part in the story. Another AC shows up and surprises us, but he's no match for us.
Good work. It looks like they've all been destroyed. I still cannot believe what an exceptional pilot you have become. I guess Klein wasn't wrong after all. You are too dangerous. You must be eliminated.
Betrayal.
And just like that, our old master betrays us. Little does he know, like GM, we're too big to fail. He really didn't stand a chance, sadly. And now he's tipped us off that we're in LCC's sights. As our clout as an AC pilot grows, we're tasked to investigate Leos Klein, who's the leader of the Frighteners that LCC has hired to bring peace to Mars. He's been sighted visiting the abandoned Murakumo Dome multiple times. That is most likely where human settlers live, while the atmosphere of Mars was in the works.
Wait, I'm picking something up on the radar. High temperature response. Missiles approaching. Get out now. Enemy units detected. ACs. It's a trap.
You know too much. We don't need you.
Unable to recover your AC while enemy units are present. Take them out.
So yeah, LCC really wants us dead. We're pretty much enemy number one in their eyes. We're just too strong, and all their attempts at eliminating us has just been for nothing.
Enemies destroyed. Get out of there now.
So unlike us, everyone else has been struggling with LCC. LCC pretty much has all these corporations by the balls. Murakumo Mars Division separated from the Earth Division because LCC has them in control, and the Mars Division has just really been failing. Mars Murakumo pretty much gets to the point where they have absolutely nothing left, and I guess they've gotten so desperate to the point where their final solution is just to napalm all the Mars colonies, but thankfully we're there to save the day.
Secure mode activated. Canceling launch.
And with no more opposition, LCC can finally come to Mars and take their throne. Why they pay us to tag along is a mystery. We've been under fire from the Frighteners ever since they arrived on Mars, but whatever. They're paying me and I got 10 mouths to feed.
They've arrived.
Yeah, the Frighteners just went rogue, and since they were paying me just to stand there, I just kinda watched. Honestly, I kinda enjoy it. Never mind, they didn't even pay me. So long story short, Klein and his band of merry men have decided to say fuck the Earth government and take control of Mars for themselves. It turns out these disorder units are a defense system from the previous civilization, and controlling them means controlling Mars. Klein seems to have a good grasp on all of this, and just like every video game, it's our job to save the day. So we kill some Frighteners, figure out glass explodes, kill some disorder units, and in the process we're tipped off on Klein's whereabouts. He's hiding out in a space station's core. If we damage the generators, it could end with us no longer existing.
Let's fight, Raven. We'll settle this in battle. Let's fight, Raven. We'll settle this in battle. Let's fight, Raven. We'll settle this in battle. Let's fight, Raven.
It's unmanned. Klein isn't here.
Okay, so that was a decoy. It's at this point I start getting some serious Project Phantasma vibes. I always hate it whenever games put you one step behind the villain. Pretty much every Raven's being thrown at this next attempt, so they better be right this time. We destroy all the defenses and do a few laps around the building until a door magically opens.
Looks like we're the only ones who made it. Alright, let's rock.
Our friend that let us in made it a total of 10 seconds, so now it's just all up to us. We make it through the ringer and once again confront Klein.
You remind me of another pilot I knew long ago. A rebel. I've already figured someone like you into my calculation. It's my intention that you do not interfere with my plans. Raven, it's not over yet. Focus. That is where I'll be reborn.
So Phobos is one of the moons orbiting Mars, and looking at it, it kind of looks like a Death Star. And oh yeah, it's a Death Star. So Klein neural linked himself to the moon, and now for the third and final time we gotta go fuck his ass up. If we succeed saving Mars, Earth government will grant us Ravens our freedom. I didn't know we were slaves, and I was too busy shitting on LCC to know they had any real gravitas, but I got 10 mouths to feed at home and they're paying me to kill this guy, so we might as well. And this final mission, just like all the other Armored Core's final missions, definitely has a lot to show.
Klein, why? We were nothing but pawns?
We all make mistakes, don't you think, Raven?
That's what she said!
We humans need strict supervision. We cannot live on our own. A state dedicated solely to Ravens. I'm a realist, not some fool. All that I've wanted to do is to revive the ways of old. Die, rebel! Raven!
Phobos orbit altered. It's falling toward the Martian surface.
Destroy the orbit control mechanism. Phobos will stop when you do so.
Phobos orbit deteriorating. You'll never make it. Get out, hurry!
Raven. What is it that you wish?
I'll have 2 number 9s, a number 9 large, a number 6 extra dip, a number 7, 2 number 45s, 1 with cheese.
Our character actually does survive, but he's never used again in the series, so I don't know, they could have just killed him off. The story was better than the previous games, but you can tell it was just connected with a very thin shoestring. If you ever decide to play the game, or if you have played the game, then you would know. But I'm not really going to get into too much detail with that. But my biggest complaint really is just the question why. Why did Klein and the Frighteners do what they did? Klein says all he wanted was to revive the ways of the old, what exactly does that mean? He's apparently the rank 1 Raven back on Earth, and he's got a group of mercenaries that's definitely willing to follow him. So if he did have a big issue with Earth government, why didn't he just fix it on Earth? Why exactly did you have to transfer your mind into a Death Star? Why exactly did he kill his friend at the end? I got no clue. Why exactly was Klein in that reactor core on that space station? Like, what's there to do in a reactor core? I don't know, I feel like that should have been the final level, but then maybe FromSoft said, oh no, we need like 3 or 4 more levels, and then they had to just like quickly create this addition to the plot. But this story is in fact an upgrade, and sadly this is the last time we're ever going to be on Mars. So despite the story being ended, there's actually one extra piece of content in this game. If we go back and we kill all the ACs and all the missions, a new Raven will spawn in the arena. This guy's name's Matthias, and even though it says he's rank 58, he should probably be in rank 1. He's really tough, and you can't just cheese him like the other number 1 in the arena, mainly because he has missile defense systems, and instead of using missiles, he just uses really high damaging weapons. I did decide to give myself a challenge, so all I used was a rifle on this guy, just a regular standard battle rifle. And I had to bolt on some extra ammo to my mech, but other than that it was doable. And I also tried this on the rank 1 pilot Ares, and it didn't go as well. Usually this guy's harder, Matthias is harder, but the thing about it is he's just worse at managing his energy. And he also doesn't have the speed that Ares has, so it was a lot easier for Ares to close the distance on me. And both of them were only beatable because they both run out of energy after overboosting, and they both will just spam fire their weapon even though it's not really the most optimal range. But it was definitely a challenge, and I am not going to be covering Armored Core 2 Another Age in the next video. It's pretty much Armored Core 2 but back on Earth like 5 years after the events of Armored Core 2. There's no arena and there's not really much storytelling, you just kind of roleplay as a mercenary, which is cool. There's some balancing changes and new parts. The thing is, it's just so long and wouldn't add that much to the series. But I just recently learned that there's actually local co-op missions, and it's not just replaying regular single-player missions, it's like full-blown new co-op missions. So I'd definitely like to give it a try someday. But as always, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please like and leave some constructive criticism in the comments to help me improve. It'll help with the algorithm, and subscribing would also help too, and you'll know when the Armored Core 3 video comes out. I don't plan on giving up on this series. Armored Core has gotten such little love that I feel like I need to make these videos. It's honestly why I started video editing and creating videos. And one big question I really have that would be nice if it was answered was, do you guys think the intro took too long? Like, should I just skip the intro cutscenes, or maybe just sum up what they have to offer with whatever new features they show? These videos are kind of meant for people that never play Armored Core games, so they understand the series, but you know, nobody wants to sit around for 2 or 3 minutes. So yeah, let me know in the comments. Thank you.